Want to know how to learn a language 2 times faster? Here's a quick hint. It involves reading and listening to your target language at the same time. It's a super easy yet powerful method that anyone can apply to absorb a language. And you can apply this method with the lesson notes inside our learning system. So stick around. Today, you'll discover why listening and reading along is so powerful, what the lesson notes are and how to get them, and 3 ways to learn faster with the lesson notes. But first, if you don't yet have access to our language learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. So let's jump in. I'll guide you through our learning system so you get to see exactly what's inside and our members-only study tools. Okay, so in this lesson, let's take a look at the lesson notes on our website. But first, I want you to imagine that you're listening to native speakers that are having a conversation. Maybe you catch a word or 2 here or there, but the rest kind of goes over your head because they're speaking really fast. There are lots of unknown words and sentence patterns, and this is a really common thing that lots of beginners really struggle with. But what if you could listen to that conversation and follow along at the same time? You're reading the things that they are saying as they're speaking. Makes it really easy to understand everything, right? But this also will help you to retain the information and remember it better because you're listening to it and you're reading it at the same time. So that's what we're going to look at today with the lesson notes. This is a tool that you can have in every single lesson on our website. So let's talk about how to find it and how you can use it. So we're going to start from the dashboard on the website, but there are a few different ways that you can access the lesson notes. So from the dashboard, you can go to any lesson that's in your pathways list here. So for example, I'm going to go to the Go to Lesson button here that is currently in the active pathway. And to access the lesson notes for this current lesson, I'm going to just click on the lesson notes link, which is just below this main dashboard panel here. So when we go to lesson notes, we find some basic information about the lesson. What is the lesson focus, right? In this case, it's about asking about health or general situation of someone, right? So this is a very basic overview. But inside the lesson notes, you will find the dialogue from the lesson. You'll find the things that they said. You'll find some information about it. Why do we say this expression? Why did the person say it that way, right? We also have some examples of other things that we can say in that situation. There are some sample sentences that you can use for reference, pronunciation tips. You'll find culture tips as well. There's key vocabulary, key phrases. Depending on the language you're studying and the level, you might also find some grammar tips. So you'll find a little bit of an outline about how to use that grammar. So there's a lot of information all inside the lesson notes for you to read. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the different ways that you can use these lesson notes. So let's say, for example, you take this lesson today, and then you want to review the lesson tomorrow. You come to the website and you decide you want to review the lesson, but you don't want to just listen to the lesson again, right? What you can do is come to the lesson notes section, for example, and read through the information as you listen to the lesson. So you're reading the dialogue as you listen to the lesson. You read through everything as you listen along. Maybe you choose to speak along with the lesson, or you do some shadowing practice with the lesson. You write down the example sentences that are provided or the sample sentences that are provided. You do some work with the pronunciation tip that is included in the lesson, right? You can copy out the sentences that are written here and use that for writing practice. So there are lots of different things that you can do with the lesson notes that aren't just about like listening and kind of reviewing separately, if you know what I mean. You can put them all together. So you listen to the lesson and then you read the lesson notes at the same time, and then maybe you listen again without the lesson notes. So you can integrate these into your review sessions so that you're not just listening every time, but you're also really thinking about the different ways that you can use the language, speaking and reading and writing, so that you retain the information, you remember it better, and so that you learn faster. Lastly, I want to point out that if you continue scrolling down on this page, you'll also find a lesson transcript if you want to review that also. The last point that I want to make then is this download as PDF button. So you can click this at the bottom of the lesson notes section, or there's another one at the bottom of the lesson transcript section too. If you want to download this and save it for maybe using it on your phone, on your computer, if you want to print it out or something like that. It's up to you. You can do that very easily here. Choose download as PDF to do that. So this is a really quick introduction to all the different ways that you can use the lesson notes to make sure that you're learning quickly and efficiently, and to make your review sessions really kind of interesting and not just listening to exactly the same thing as you listened to the day or the week before. So again, you can find the lesson notes from the lesson notes link at the bottom of every lesson dashboard on the website. And you can review the lesson without retaking the lesson with the lesson notes. You just read through, review the lesson's dialogue, grammar, and vocabulary. It just takes a minute or two. But why do this? Well, one of the best ways to acquire language is through repeated exposure. So you take a lesson and then review the lesson notes after for that repeated exposure. So, if you want to learn the language and get access to these learning tools and our learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. Hey everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Azizbek. Hi Azizbek, I hope I said your name correctly. Azizbek says, what is the difference between I should have gone and I had to go? Nice question. Okay, let's break down the differences between these two. So both of these refer to a past situation, right? We're talking about a past event. Let's look at I had to go first. So I had to go is the past tense form of I have to go, right? So when we use the have to grammar structure, we use it to express a responsibility, right? We have some outside responsibility and we have to do that thing because if we do not do that thing, we might get in trouble or cause a problem for someone else. Basically, the feeling with have to is there is a responsibility to do something, to participate in something. So we have the past tense form of that in I had to go. In this case, we can imagine it's an event or a meeting perhaps, right? I had to go means I had a responsibility. There was a responsibility for me to go to the event. If I did not go to the event, I might have gotten in trouble or there might have been a problem. Okay, so I had to go expresses responsibility. Now, let's compare that to I should have gone. I should have gone. This sentence expresses regret. This sentence means I did not go to the event. But now that I think about it, I wish I had chosen differently. So this pattern, I should have done something, expresses that thing did not happen, but now that I think about it, I wish I had done that thing. So we're expressing regret with this. So this is the difference between I had to go and I should have gone. So one expresses responsibility for something you did do, and one expresses regret for something you did not do. So I hope that this breakdown helps you to understand the differences between should have and had to. If you want to know some more about these should have, could have, and would have patterns, definitely check out some of my other videos on the channel. You can do a quick search to find those videos with more information about those should have, could have, and would have patterns. They can be very challenging, but they are super, super common. So check them out. All right, I hope that that answered your question. Thanks so much for sending it along. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Sandaruwan. Hello, Sandaruwan. I hope I said your name correctly. Sandaruwan says, hi, Alicia. Could you explain the meaning of if you say so and how can I use it? Yeah, cool question. It's very interesting, this expression. So we tend to use if you say so with a very specific intonation. We use it with the intonation, if you say so. If you say so, we use it to express frustration or kind of disbelief, something that we feel is maybe not true, but we just want to get away from the situation. So here's an example situation. Let's say person A and person B are having an argument about something. Person A says, you said this thing to me. And person B says, I did not say that thing to you. And they have an argument. Yes, you did. No, I didn't, right? Finally, this argument is going for a long time. It has been going for a long time. Person B is tired and they go, oh, if you say so, and they leave the conversation. So if you say so means
I don't believe you, or I don't really think that this is true, or I don't want to believe that this is true, but I guess because you are saying it's true, that it must be true, and I want to be done. I want to go. We usually use if you say so to mean I don't really believe you, but I'm tired of this conversation and I want it to be over. So this is not a very polite expression, and we usually just use it with people that we are very close to, like close friends or close family members. And we tend to use it after we've had kind of an intense discussion or a bit of a fight or something like that, where two people both have their ideas and one person isn't moving, right, to meet the other person. So they say, if you say so, which really just means, well, I guess it's true. You keep saying this thing, so it must be true. So that's where the if you say part comes from. If you say that, it must be true. And the so part is kind of like saying, if you say that, yeah? Or if you say that's the case, it must be true. But we use this if you say so to express all of that. It's a very kind of efficient expression. But again, we tend to use it when we're feeling frustrated or tired and we don't want to argue anymore. And we just want to let the other person win. We just want to say, fine, okay, it's your opinion here. I'm done. So this is what we use if you say so to express. So you might hear this in TV and movies from time to time. And keep in mind that it is not a super polite expression, but you can use it to end an argument. So I hope that this answers your question. Thanks very much for sending it along. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Marcos Geraldo Martinez Saenes. I hope I said your name right, Marcos. Hi, Marcos. Marco says, what is the difference between embrace and hug? Nice question. Okay. First, I want to talk about the verb uses that are shared with these two words. So to embrace and to hug can both mean to put your arms around another person, or maybe even a pet, to put your arms around someone and to express affection in this way, right? You meet up with your family member you haven't seen in a long time. You can say, I embraced my mother, or I hugged my mother. So in this sense, they have the same meaning. However, embrace tends to sound much more formal. Usually I wouldn't say like, I embraced my mother. I would say, I hugged my mother. This sounds much more natural. Embrace is a much more formal word. So to embrace and to hug refer to that same action of putting your arms around someone else, or, a pet maybe too. We can also use these two words as nouns to refer to this action. For example, he hugged her in a tight embrace, or he put his arms around her in a tight hug. So we can use these words as nouns and as verbs to express the same thing. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some alternative uses of embrace and hug that are different from the ones that I just talked about. So first, let's talk about the word hug in a different sense. We use hug when we want to talk about something that fits very, very closely to something else. We use this word a lot when we're talking about our clothing. So very fitted clothing we can describe as hugging the body, right? So you can think of this kind of like the way I talked about earlier. When you put your arms around someone else, you become kind of tight against them, right? So when clothing hugs your body, it's very tight against your body, right? So you might say, for example, the dress hugs her body, or the jacket hugged his shoulders. Something like this expresses a tight fit, or something that is just more fitted, closely fitted to the body. So there is this use of hug as well. So now let's talk about the verb embrace, and I want to talk a little bit about a different use of embrace. So we can use the verb embrace to mean accept something, like a personality point or something like a skill perhaps, or maybe even a situation in your life. When we say embrace that thing, it means like accept that thing and kind of enjoy it as well. So if your friends are trying to get you to come out on like a Friday or a Saturday night, they might say, embrace your wild side, come out with us for an evening, something like that, which means accept that you have a side that likes to be wild or likes to party sometimes, and just go and enjoy. Another example that you might hear is related to a situation, right? You might hear someone say something like, embrace the moment, which means just accept this moment and enjoy it, or accept this point in time and enjoy it. You might hear people say this before you try something new, before you go on an exciting adventure, or something like that. You can say embrace the moment to talk about just taking advantage of these one-time life experiences, or trying to enjoy and accept those special experiences. So we can use embrace to talk about accepting something and enjoying something in this way. So I hope that this helps you understand the differences between embrace and hug. We can use them both to talk about putting your arms around someone else, and we can use them in a couple different ways too, to talk about something that is closely fitted to something else, and to talk about accepting and enjoying something in your life. So thanks very much for sending this question along. All right, that is everything that I have for this week. So thank you as always for sending me your great questions. Remember, you can send them to me at englishclass101.com/ask-Alicia. That's a very long URL, so please check the link in the description. You can find the official question submission page at that link. Please send me your questions on the official question submission page. I will definitely see your question there, and I may choose to include it in this series. So please, please, please send them to me there. Also, if you enjoyed this lesson, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, like this video, and of course, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at englishclass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Ask Alicia, and I will see you again next time. Bye!
Are you struggling to understand conversations in your target language? This video will improve your listening skills using practice dialogues. How do you know if your language skills are improving? Our team of teachers have designed a free quiz to determine your actual learning level. So click the link in the description to get your free assessment and unlock lessons that are right for you. In this lesson, you'll listen to a dialogue with the text. Second, you'll review the key vocabulary followed by the English translations. And finally, you'll review the dialogue with the text again to master what you learned. First, listen to the dialogue with the text on the screen.
Hey, Amanda,
Yes?
I need you to take care of the pre-flight checklist and get everything ready for takeoff. I need to make a quick phone call before we leave for Philadelphia.
Will you take long?
I'm not sure. It depends on if my friend in Philadelphia answers the phone or not.
No problem. I'll start the checklist and wait for you to come back.
Now you will hear the key vocabulary, followed by the English translation.
Pre-flight.
Occurring before a flight in an aircraft.
Checklist.
A list of things to be done, used as a reminder.
Quick.
Moving fast or doing something in a short time.
Before.
During the period of time preceding a particular event, date, or time.
Depends.
Be controlled or determined by.
Answers.
The things said, written, or done in response to a question.
Finally, let's review the dialogue again. See if you can understand more this time.
Hey, Amanda,
Yes?
I need you to take care of the pre-flight checklist and get everything ready for takeoff. I need to make a quick phone call before we leave for Philadelphia.
Will you take long?
I'm not sure. It depends on if my friend in Philadelphia answers the phone or not.
No problem. I'll start the checklist and wait for you to come back.
This is the end of the lesson. In this lesson, you improved your listening and mastered key vocabulary for everyday life conversation. Don't forget to click the link in the description to get your free assessment and unlock lessons that are right for your learning level. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.
Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this video, I'm going to talk about the differences between affect with an A and effect with an E. Let's get started. Okay,
let's begin by talking with effect with an A. In speech, effect with an A and effect with an E sound the same. At the beginning of this lesson, I emphasized the differences between the two just to make it clear which one I was talking about. But actually, in everyday speech, effect and effect are pronounced the same way. So, effect with an A, in your spelling, you need to consider this, can be used in two ways. First is the most common way of using this. It's as a verb. The verb affect means to cause a change in someone or something. So this causes some kind of transformation or some change happens, and we describe that in verb form with effect with an A. Let's take a look at a few example sentences that use this. First, rainy weather negatively affects my mood. Rainy weather negatively affects my mood. So this sentence means that rainy weather negatively causes a change in my mood. So we use effect with an A here. Effect with an E would be incorrect. Another example. Our boss's anger affected our team's morale. Our boss's anger affected our team's morale. So in this sentence, effect with an A is used here to show that our boss's anger caused this change in our team's morale. So morale means like the level of motivation and the level of happiness of a group. That's morale. So we use effect with an A here. Again, effect with an E would be incorrect. Finally, his new medication affects his muscles. So again, that means this new medication this person is taking has some kind of change or created some kind of change in his muscles. His new medication affects his muscles. So this is what we use effect with an A to do. Before we go on to the second point here, I want to compare this to the first use of effect with an E that I'm going to talk about in this lesson. So let's take a look. Effect with an E is used primarily as a noun. Again, as with effect with an A, there are a couple different uses of effect with an E, but most commonly we use effect with an E as a noun, and this noun means the result of a change in someone or something. So it's kind of like the outcome. It's the change itself. What happened? We use effect with an E to express that. So we can actually use the same topics, the same kind of sentence that we used here, but we just need to change the sentence structure a little bit. So I'll show you what I mean in these example sentences. First, rainy weather has a negative effect on my mood. Rainy weather has a negative effect on my mood. So in this sentence, we see exactly the same idea as in this sentence, yeah? But the difference here is that we need to create a sentence structure that uses effect as a noun. So for that reason, we have rainy weather has a negative effect on my mood. In this sentence, when we used effect with an A, we said rainy weather negatively affects. Here we have to change the structure of the sentence. Rainy weather has an effect. To have an effect. You can kind of think of this as a set pattern, to have an effect. Both of these sentences are 100% correct. It's up to you to choose which one you want to use. Let's look at another example sentence and compare it to the first one. Our boss's anger had an effect on our team's morale. Our boss's anger had an effect on our team's morale. So again, we have the same topic, the same thing that's causing some kind of change here, right? That part does not change. But we use this same have structure to have an effect on something else. So A has an effect on B is the pattern that you can use if that's helpful for you. In this case, it's a past tense structure. So had an effect with an E on our team's morale. So the same idea is being communicated as in the first set of examples. Finally, let's look at the last one. His new medication has an effect on his muscles. His new medication has an effect on his muscles. So again, effect with an E is used as a noun. It refers to the outcome or the result of a change. Effect with an A as a verb refers to causing something to change or causing someone to change. So again, we can use these two words to express the same ideas in sentences. There's no difference in terms of more correct or more polite or less polite. It's up to you to determine which one you prefer, and you can mix and match. So with that said, let's go now to point 2 for both of these words, because this is where things get quite different. So let's take a look at effect with an A and talk about the second use. So the second use of effect with an A is as a noun, but this is very uncommon. This use of effect with an A is not really used in everyday conversation. This use is used more with doctors, medical professionals, psychologists, people who deal with human behavior. This use of effect means the expression of feelings and emotions with the face and body. The expression of feelings and emotions with your face and with your body. So that means how you express yourself, right? So the noun for this is affect. Affect. So notice the pronunciation change. We don't say affect here. The emphasis changes with this noun form. We say affect. Affect. So when you're writing, it looks the same, but in spoken English, this word as a noun referring to this, the expression of emotions, is pronounced affect. So let's look at this in a few example sentences, in a couple. That woman has an anxious affect. That woman has an anxious affect. So that means that woman's emotional display, her body language, her facial expressions, these things together are anxious. So that woman has an anxious affect. That's what this sentence communicates. But again, we don't use sentences like this very much in everyday conversation. This is a sentence that could possibly be used by a professional, someone who studies human behavior, emotions, feelings, and so on. This is not something I would generally say. If I wanted to express this same kind of idea in everyday conversation, would probably say something like, that woman looks anxious. That woman looks anxious. But a professional person, maybe taking notes about someone, might say that woman has an anxious affect. Okay, one more example of this. This patient has a normal affect. This patient has a normal affect. So normal affect means there are normal displays of emotion and feeling in this person. So when they're supposed to feel angry or sad or happy and so on, all of those emotional displays are normal. So we might express that with a sentence like this. This patient has a normal affect. So again, this is probably something a professional, a medical professional, psychological professional might use to talk about their work and their patients that they're seeing. So again, we don't use this in everyday conversation very much, but you may find it somewhere in a news report or in other documentation. So this part is kind of just for your information. This part here is the key takeaway for affect. And note the pronunciation change too. Okay. Finally, let's finish this lesson by looking at point 2 for effect with an E. So effect with an E can be used as a verb, and this use is fairly common. It's not as common as the noun use of effect, but you may see this from time to time, so it's good to know about this. So effect with an E as a verb is used to mean to bring about or to cause something to happen. So we see this a lot in reports of change, in reports of like groups of people or certain like policy changes or like community members doing something in order to bring something else about. So let's take a look at some examples so you can see what I mean. First one, our proposal effected positive changes. So effected, in this case past tense, effected positive changes. That means we can replace effect with this kind of idea. Our proposal brought about positive changes in our company, or our proposal caused positive changes to happen in our company. So these have the same feel, but we use effect to say that very efficiently. Our proposal effected positive changes in our company means our proposal caused positive changes to happen or brought about positive changes in our company. So you'll see this use a lot, like effect plus the word change after effect. This is quite a common pattern with this verb. Let's look at one more example. The medical policy adjustment effected change in the country. The medical policy adjustment effected change in the country. So again, we could replace this effected, in this case past tense, with one of these. So the medical policy adjustment brought about change in the country. So we use this effect to kind of efficiently say that something caused something else to change. So a good hint word when you're seeing this kind of effect and you're trying to decide, is this the noun form, is this the verb form? You might look and see if change is after it. It won't be there 100% of the time, but this is a good hint word to look for. So these are the two uses of effect with an E that you are most likely to see when you are reading and writing, and when you are speaking, of course, too. It's important to know these differences. And these are the differences and the different uses of effect with an A. Again, this is the most common form, the verb form here. So I hope that this lesson helped you understand the differences between these two words. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making some example sentences with this information, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Also, if you like this lesson, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Also, check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. See you next time. Bye. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, we're going to look at gerunds and infinitives with 10 common verbs. Let's get started. First, let's talk about what even is an infinitive. What is a gerund? Let's break these two very important concepts down, and then we'll get into the main part of the lesson. First, let's look at the infinitive. What is an infinitive? So an infinitive is very simple. It's just the to verb form. So when you see to plus a verb, you're looking at the infinitive form. You might find this form of the verb if you look in a dictionary. This is called the infinitive form. So the infinitive form communicates the feeling of in order to do something, or it communicates a potential future action. So something that might happen in the future, something that is going to happen in the future, and so on. So this is the thing that infinitive refers to. Let's compare this to gerund. So a gerund is this form. So this verb plus ing. So you might think, isn't that the same thing as like the progressive form of a verb? And the answer is yes. On paper, the spelling is 100% the same. However, the key difference here is that a gerund, while it uses this same verb ing form, is taking the place of a noun. So we'll see this in our example sentences later today. So the key here is the grammatical position of the word is different. But yes, it does use that verb ing form, which is the same as the progressive form of a verb. So a gerund communicates an actual activity or an actual action, something that is happening or something that happened, and so on. So let's break down now some very common verbs, and let's take a look at when we use infinitives, when we use gerunds with these verbs, if we can use both, and so on. Because actually, in English, sometimes we have only an infinitive we can use with the verb. Sometimes we have only a gerund we can use. Sometimes we can use both, and sometimes we can use both, but the meaning changes. So as you can imagine, this is a lot of information to think about, and it takes some time to get used to which verbs take which form, and so on. So in this lesson, I'm going to break down some very common verbs and talk about some really important notes so that you can use them correctly. Okay, so let's get started by taking a look at the first verb over here. A very easy one, as you can see. The verb finish, the verb finish. We cannot use the verb finish with a to verb. We don't use finish to verb. We don't use it in this way. So let's talk about now
the other side of this so that you can see how we should use finish when we're connecting to other verbs. We use the verb finish with a gerund. So what does this look like? Here are two example sentences. He finished working at 6. He finished working at 6. Working is the gerund in the ing form. Here, she'll finish cooking soon. She'll finish cooking soon. Here is the gerund, cooking. So in these sentences, again, we have the gerund form, and this is the only form that we can use with the verb finish. So if we imagine this, the same verbs with the verb finish over here, we cannot apply an infinitive rule. So for example, he finished to work at 6 is incorrect, and she'll finish to cook soon is also incorrect. So when you use the verb finish, make sure that you connect it to the next verb with this gerund form. Okay, so this is our first example. We'll go one by one through all of the examples like this and take a look at which form is appropriate for each verb. Okay, so let's take a look at the next verb. So the next verb is actually two verbs. We can use this same rule for the verbs start and begin. So start and begin can both be used with the infinitive after the verb. So our examples. The little girl started to cry. The little girl started to cry. Here's our infinitive verb, to cry. And we should begin to plan our next product. We should begin to plan our next product. So both of these example sentences contain the infinitive form, to cry and to plan. And they communicate some upcoming future action, or in this case, this action here, the little girl started to cry, is like saying it's the beginning of this future action. That's what we're communicating here. So let's compare this to using these with the gerund form. So start and begin can also be used with the gerund form. The little girl started crying, and we should begin planning our next product. So we can use both forms with these verbs, and they communicate the same idea. Okay, let's continue to our next verb. The next verb is stop. Stop. You'll notice I've marked this with a blue star. We have some special notes for this verb, but first let's take a look at the example sentences. First, let's stop to eat at this restaurant. Let's stop to eat at this restaurant. So imagine you're driving in a car, perhaps, and you see a restaurant that looks good for lunch. Let's stop to eat at this restaurant. So in other words, let's stop in order to eat at this restaurant. And our second example, he stopped to smoke. He stopped to smoke. So for example, he was walking down the street. He stopped walking in order to smoke. That's what this sentence communicates. So let's compare these example sentences with the infinitive form to the example sentences with the gerund form. Stop is an example of a verb that can take both the infinitive and the gerund forms. However, the meaning changes. So let's take a look at this. Our first example, let's stop eating at this restaurant. Let's stop eating at this restaurant. So we have stop and eating. Eating is our gerund. This sentence means we should not eat at this restaurant again. So stop eating at this restaurant means maybe we ate at this restaurant many times, but something happened this time. Maybe you go to the restaurant and there are bugs in the restaurant, or the food is terrible, or it's very expensive, or the staff is very rude. Something bad happens, and you say, let's stop eating at this restaurant. This is what the gerund form expresses. Remember, the infinitive form was, let's stop to eat at this restaurant, which means let's stop the car and go for food at this restaurant. This one communicates we don't want to eat here anymore. So this is a big change. Let's stop gerund communicates let's not do this thing any longer. Let's look at one more example. He stopped smoking. He stopped smoking. This sentence means he stopped the habit of smoking. So maybe he was a smoker, he smoked cigarettes for a very long time, and then one day he decided to change that habit. He stopped smoking. So this, again, is completely finishing a behavior. In our first example with the infinitive form, he stopped to smoke, this communicates stopping one action one time in order to do another action.
However, with the gerund form, it means completely stopping or completely finishing an action. So please keep this in mind. Both are completely correct. Both example sets are completely correct, but stop takes the infinitive and the gerund and it communicates different ideas depending on which one you choose. So this is a very important one to keep in mind. Okay, let's continue to our next verb. The next verb is decide. Decide. Let's look at the first example. Decide. They decided to leave. They decided to leave. So in this situation, we have to leave as our infinitive verb. And in this case, we're communicating some upcoming action. There's a future action. They decided to leave. So that sounds like they are going to leave very soon. Our second example. She decided to move to a new house. She decided to move to a new house. So again, this sentence with to move in the infinitive communicates an upcoming action, a future action, something that is going to happen. She decided to move to a new house. So this is how we use the verb decide with the infinitive form. Over here, decide cannot be used with the gerund form. We cannot use the ing form after the verb decide. For example, they decided leaving is incorrect. Or she decided moving, also incorrect. We cannot use decide in the same way as we do with the infinitive form. So you don't have to worry about it here. Okay, great. Let's continue on to the next one. The next one is practice. Practice. So I've marked this with a red triangle to kind of show you a warning a little bit. So practice cannot be used in exactly the same way with the infinitive and the gerund forms. Actually, we use practice most of the time with the gerund form. I'll show you these example sentences in just a second. But there are a couple of sentence structures where we do see the infinitive form used with practice. So I want to start actually with the gerund form over here because it's more common with this verb. So let's take a look at how we use practice with the gerund. First example sentence. She practiced singing yesterday. She practiced singing yesterday. So in this sentence, singing is the activity for the practice. Okay? In the second example, we should practice cooking this. We should practice cooking this. So if you have a very complicated recipe, for example, you might say, we should practice cooking this. So again, cooking is the activity for practice, okay? So we are expressing some kind of activity that you want to do many times in order to get better at that thing. So we use the gerund form to do that. On the other hand, the infinitive, we don't really use the infinitive to do this. We don't say, she practiced to sing yesterday, or we should practice to cook this. This doesn't really communicate the same feel as we have with the gerund form. So we use the gerund form to talk about our practice activities. As I mentioned, however, there are a couple of sentence structures that we do see practice used with the infinitive, and those are sentences like these. In these sentences, we're not talking about the specific activity we're practicing. Actually, these sentences are just about the reason for practice. So let's look at what I mean. First, I need to practice to get better. I need to practice to get better. So this sentence means I need to practice in order to get better. Let's look at the second example. You should practice to improve your skills. So you should practice in order to improve your skills. So in sentence patterns like these, where the focus is on our actual improvement of skills, where we're building the skills, we can use the infinitive form in this way. However, when you want to talk about the actual subject you're practicing, you should use the gerund form. So this is a very important and key difference with the verb practice. So we use them in different ways. Okay, great. Let's continue on to the next group. The next group is actually 3. I have like, love, and hate here. And we can also use other emotion and mental state related verbs, but I want to focus on these 3 because they are very common in everyday communication. So we can use like, love, and hate with the infinitive form and with the gerund form, and there's no change in meaning. So that's hopefully a relief for you. You don't have to worry so much about these verbs. Let's take a look. So first, he loves to hike. He loves to hike. And she hates to lose. She hates to lose. And we like to watch movies. We like to watch movies. So all of these communicate this idea of something that we feel emotional about, some kind of regular activity that we enjoy or that we dislike. We can do the same thing with the gerund form, and it's perfectly correct. He loves hiking. He loves hiking. She hates losing. She hates losing. And we like watching movies. We like watching movies. So these sentences, no matter which one you choose, you are going to communicate the same idea. So this form and this form, there's really not a difference between the two. So I hope that this one gives you a sense of relief. You don't have to worry so much about this. Okay, let's move on to the next one though. The next few are some very intense topics, so we have a lot to talk about here. So first, let's take a look at the verb remember, remember. So our example sentences, he remembered to buy milk. He remembered to buy milk. And we didn't remember to watch the movie. We didn't remember to watch the movie. So here, infinitive form, he remembered to buy. Okay, so in other words, another way to say this is he did not forget to buy milk, right? He remembered to buy milk, and we didn't remember to watch the movie. We didn't remember to watch the movie. We have the infinitive forms here. Okay, so these sentences, the meaning is pretty clear, I think, right? So these are actions we remembered to do, right? Let's compare this, though, to the gerund use of remember, because we communicate something very different here. He remembered buying milk. He remembered buying milk. This sentence means he remembered the activity of buying milk. That means he remembers his actions. He remembers going to the store and talking to the staff at the store and giving them money and taking the milk home. He remembered all of that. He remembered the activity of buying milk. Okay? This is what this sentence communicates with the gerund form. He remembered that action, that specific action. Second example, we didn't remember watching the movie. We didn't remember watching the movie. So this sentence, again, we have the negative here. This sentence means we, the speakers, the group of people, they do not remember the activity of watching the movie. So this sounds like they watched a movie, but they don't remember any of it. They don't remember. Maybe they were very tired, or maybe there was some other thing happening. They were very stressed out or something like that. So they do not remember the activity, the action of watching the movie. That is what this grammar choice, this gerund here communicates this idea, that the specific action itself is the thing that the person does not remember. So this is a key difference with the gerund form and the infinitive. Here we're talking about the action, remembering to do a thing, and on the other hand, we're talking about the experience itself. So this is a key difference here. We're going to see this again with the next verb as well. So this is our first one. Let's look at a similar pattern that we have with our next verb then. The verb forget is the same idea as remember, it's just the opposite, right? Remember and forget. We have the same rule that applies. So let's look at our examples. He forgot to meet me. He forgot to meet me. So here we have our infinitive. He forgot to meet. He forgot to meet me. So in this case, some activity, some meeting was scheduled and he forgot. So I was planning to meet him, he forgot. Okay? So this is just one action, a one-time thing. He forgot to do this action. Second example, she forgot to email the file. She forgot to email the file. So I had a plan to email the file or something, or she had a plan to email the file. She forgot. She forgot to do that action. So we have the same feeling that we just talked about with remember. Yes, this was a one-time thing. He forgot to meet me this one time. And she forgot to email this thing the one time. On the other hand, when we use the gerund form here, we're talking about the whole experience, forgetting the whole experience. So, he forgot meeting me. He forgot meeting me means we met maybe a long time ago, but he forgot. So this has probably happened to many people. You meet someone one time very quickly in the past, and maybe you meet them again in the future, and you're like, who are you? Sorry, I don't remember meeting you, or I forgot meeting you. So this means the experience of meeting that person, the complete experience is gone. You forgot about that. Let's look at our second example. She forgot emailing the file.
She forgot emailing the file. This means she did email the file. She emailed the file, but she forgot about doing it. She forgot. She was doing lots of different things that day at work. She forgot about that specific experience of emailing the file. So we can use this to talk about entire experiences we forget. Sometimes there's just part of our day we don't remember, right? We can express that with this. So forget and remember take this same kind of special meaning when we have the gerund form, and we use them in the infinitive form just to talk about those one-time actions that we forget or remember. Okay, great. Let's continue on to our last two verbs. We have some more notes to talk about here, but they're very important. So let's talk about how we use go with the gerund now, because it is very different, but it's also correct to use go with the gerund form of a verb. So we use go with gerunds generally when we're talking about an activity like hobbies or sports, things that we like to do outside the house. We can use the gerund form to express this. For example, they went surfing. They went surfing. So this expresses an activity they left their home to do. They went surfing. Second example, she goes swimming once a month. She goes swimming once a month. So it sounds kind of unnatural to use the infinitive form here, as in she goes to swim once a month. We usually use the gerund form when we talk about our hobbies or our activities. On the other hand, if we try to use the gerund form in these sentences, it sounds very, very strange. It's not correct, so don't use it. For example, he went buying milk an hour ago. Don't use that, it's not correct. And she went picking up her friend, also not correct. We cannot use those. So please keep in mind that when we use go and we're talking about our errands and our everyday tasks, we use the infinitive to express that. If you want to talk about your hobbies, your favorite activities and sports, use the gerund to express that. Okay, great. We are almost at the end. Let's talk about our last verb here. So the last verb is try. Try. There are a couple of different uses I want to talk about in this lesson. So I first want to talk about how we use try to mean attempt something. So let's look at our example. He tried to cook dinner. He tried to cook dinner. So we can understand this as he attempted to cook dinner. He did his best to cook dinner. So here we have to cook as the infinitive. He tried to cook dinner. Okay? Second example. They tried to unlock the door. They tried to unlock the door. So again, they attempted to unlock the door is what this means. So we can use this use of try with the gerund form as well. So he tried cooking dinner. He tried cooking dinner. So he attempted cooking dinner. He attempted the task of cooking dinner. And they tried unlocking the door. So they attempted this action, right? They attempted the action of unlocking the door. So we can use try in this way to talk about attempting to do things. This is totally fine. However, there are some situations in which it doesn't sound good to use the gerund form with try. And that's when, I'll move to this side, that's when we use try to talk about our habits. So for example, in this example sentence, it says, I try to exercise 3 times a week. I try to exercise 3 times a week. We use this to talk about our future actions, right? As we discussed earlier. We're talking about something that we do as part of our everyday routine or our regular weekly routine. We cannot use try in this way with the gerund form. For example, I try exercising 3 times a week. That sounds very strange because we generally use try to refer to attempts when we use the gerund form. I try exercising 3 times a week. Sounds quite strange. And our second example, she tries to save money every month. She tries to save money every month as a habit. So if we say she tries saving money every month, it sort of sounds like one big experience that she attempts each month. It doesn't really communicate the feeling of a habit that we have when we use the infinitive form. So if you want to express a habit to talk about something you always try to do each month, use the infinitive form. If you want to talk about attempting something, you can use the gerund form or the infinitive form to do that.
Phew. All right, that was a lot of information, I know. Gerunds and infinitives have lots and lots of possibilities. And if you feel kind of confused, that's okay. There's a lot of information to take in. This is one of those things that just takes time and practice. I really recommend you do some reading practice, of course, and do some listening practice as well to get the feel for which is most natural to use, infinitive form or gerund form. In this lesson, I covered some very, very common verbs, and there are lots and lots of other verbs out there, but the truth is that we have to look at each verb on a case-by-case basis because, as we saw, there are some verbs that just take some special care. So I hope this lesson gave you a good introduction to gerunds and infinitives, and you have some good ideas about how you can use them with these common verbs. But of course, if you have any other questions, or if you want to practice making some example sentences, or just leave a comment, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Also, if you like this lesson, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, we're going to look at some expressions you can use for catching up with someone. We're going to take a look at some questions and responses, and we're going to break down the different grammar points we use in these situations and see how they work together. So let's get started. First, let's take a look at this first set of questions. These are very common questions we use to start a catch-up conversation. So this is a conversation with a person you probably haven't seen for some time. We typically use present perfect tense to start these conversations. So the first question we commonly use is, how have you been? How have you been? So this question means, since the last time we saw each other in the past until now, what was your condition? So this period of time in which we did not meet, we did not see each other, we did not contact each other, in that time, how were you? Or how were you from that point until now? So we ask this how have you been question generally at the beginning of a catch-up session. To respond to that, we usually use I've been adjective. I've been adjective. Some very common ones are good. I've been good. I've been okay. I've been all right. I've been busy. I've been tired. And one more, I've been swamped. You might hear this one used too. Swamped means very, very busy and kind of overwhelmed. It's too much. Generally, we just say good. Good. And you'll notice here I have parentheses around I've been. Sometimes we just respond to this question with the adjective. How have you been? Good. How have you been? Okay. How have you been? Busy. And so on. So you can use I've been if you want to create a full sentence, but generally, because it's just quick and easy, we just say the adjective to respond. How have you been? Good. Okay, let's look at the next present perfect question. Next is, what have you been up to? What have you been up to? So again, we're using present perfect tense in this question. That means, again, since the last point in time that we met to now. What were you doing? What were your activities? That's what this question is asking, but in a very casual way. What have you been up to? What have you been up to? At native speed, this sounds very fast. It sounds like, what have you been up to? Or maybe even, what you been up to? So how do we respond to this question? To respond to this question, we use I've been, verb plus the ing ending here. So some examples of this are, I've been working. I've been studying. I've been hanging out. So this means nothing special, really, just hanging out, spending time with my friends. I've been hanging out. I've been sitting at my computer, or I've been taking care of my kids, or I've been visiting family. So again, we're using this present perfect grammar structure here. I've been ing form. And yes, you'll notice this is present perfect continuous we're using to respond to this. What have you been up to? I've been ing form. So we use this ing form to show that the action started in the past and has been continuing for some time. That's why we're using the continuous to respond to this question, as opposed to just basic present perfect tense, something else. So this continuous form sounds very natural to reply with. What have you been up to? Working. So you can also just drop the I've been here too. It's very natural to do that. What have you been up to? Studying a lot. Or what have you been up to? Taking care of my kids. I've been so busy, and so on. So you can use these two together. It's very natural to use these two together. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next question is a little bit more specific then. So, how has noun phrase been going? How has noun phrase been going? In this sentence, the noun phrase is something you know about the other person. Something they were working on, something they were struggling with, something they were interested in, something you remember about your past conversations with that person. You want to ask about an update with that. So, for example, these are very, very common ones. How has work been going? How has school been going? How has business been going? And you'll notice with these two, how has work, how has school, how has business been going? These are all kind of ongoing things, and they're also activities, right? So we don't use a person here. Like we don't say, how has your wife been going? Or something like that. We don't use that. We use activities, kinds of activities and things that we do on a daily basis here. So maybe there's like a sport or a hobby or something like that the other person does. You could use that here. Like, how has your photography class been going? And so on. These three are probably the most common. So, how do we respond to this question? We can respond, again, with a very similar pattern. It's been adjective. It's been adjective. This is almost the same as the first one here, but the key difference is we're using it's here in the subject. It's been adjective. Here we said I've been adjective to talk about your condition. This uses it's been to talk about this thing, the condition of this thing. So, for example, how has work been going? It's been good, or it's been the same, or it's been crazy, or it's been busy, it's been hard, it's been interesting, it's been weird, and it's been amazing. So you can choose lots and lots of different adjectives here to give some information about the status, the recent status of that activity. So keep in mind, if you choose something like weird or hard or something like that, you should probably be prepared to explain a little bit more in detail about that. But generally, you can just use an adjective, or you can use the full sentence, it's been the same. It's been good. Okay, let's look at our last question that uses present perfect tense. So the last one is, have you been verbing lately? Have you been verbing lately? So this is another type of question you can use to ask about someone else's activity. So this question is different from this question because this one is a simple yes or no question. Have you been doing that thing I know that you used to do lately? For example, have you been working out lately? Have you been cooking lately? Have you been traveling lately? Have you been working a lot lately? And so on. So you can use these little key points you remember from the last conversation and ask if they are still doing those things. So to respond to this, what should we say? This is a yes or no question, right? So we can respond with yes, a little bit, and no, and the different spectrum. There's a different group of, or rather there are different types of answers we can use here. So have you been working out lately? For example, yes, all the time, all the time. So all the time, this is something that we use to mean yes, very often, very often. But all the time sounds more casual and more friendly than yes, often. Often sounds a little formal here. Or you could say here and there, which is a casual way to say sometimes. Same thing with now and then, now and then. So have you been traveling lately? Now and then. So this means sometimes. Both of these mean sometimes. Then if you are not doing something very much, you can say, I haven't been verbing much lately. I haven't been verbing much lately. So have you been cooking lately? I haven't been cooking much lately, no. Or one more, no, I stopped verbing at a past point in time. So for example, have you been working out lately? No, I stopped working out about 3 months ago. I got really busy. So you can express that something stopped as well with this pattern. No, I stopped in past point in time.
Okay, so these are generally some of the most common questions that we use to start these catch-up conversations, and these are typically the responses that you can use. So they're very quick and very short, right? And then after you've finished this thing, there's your first opportunity for a how about you question. So you can go, how have you been? Yeah, I've been good. How about you? I've been good. And then continue on to the next part of the conversation. So after one of these, generally this question is the first one that you can finish with how about you. You can follow that up with just asking the same question to the other person. And then for more detailed follow-up questions, we will change grammar points. So let's get into this next. So I have a couple different groups, a couple different categories of follow-up questions. First, let's take a look at follow-ups that use simple past tense. So the first one is, did you verb, or did you ever verb? So this ever is useful when you know the other person had some plan. You knew about some plan they had, like to change jobs, to move to another house, something like that, and you want to ask if they did that thing. So, did you ever verb? For example, did you ever move to a new house? Or did you ever change jobs? Or did you ever sell your car? So this use of ever also is typically used after a long time, like you haven't seen someone for a very long time, maybe a year or more. You have a lot to talk about. If you saw the person like last month, it sounds too short, like that's too short of a time period to use ever. We typically use this over a long period of time. So if you just want to ask if the person did something, just drop ever from the sentence. It's still 100% correct. So did you move to a new house? Or did you change jobs? Or did you sell your car? That's just a simple, basic past tense structure. That's totally fine to use. For more emphasis on the long period of time, include ever here. So, simple past tense question. How do we respond to this? We respond with yes, I past tense verb. So, yes, I moved. Or yes, I changed jobs. Or yes, I sold my car. So that's a very simple, straightforward, clear answer. Yes, I did, in other words. You can also say not yet. Not yet, I'm planning to. So this shows that although there's no change at this point in time, there will be a change in the future. And finally, nope, I decided not to. No, I decided not to. So we still have this past tense in our response. I decided not to. So this not to means I decided not to do this thing. I decided not to move to a new house. I decided not to change jobs, and so on. But we finish with this to. This is okay in casual conversations. Okay, let's take a look at one more simple past tense question then. When did you start verbing? When did you start verbing? So this is a simple past tense question. When did you start that new activity? So when did you start working at your new job? When did you start taking classes? When did you start working out? So we use this ing form after the verb start. Start. So we're connecting these two verbs together. Start plus the other activity. When did you start? The answer for this is very simple. I started at past point in time. I started past point in time. I started last summer. I started 2 weeks ago. I started about a year ago. So we can use a very, very simple past tense answer here and just put the point in time at which we started the activity there. All right, let's move on to the next kind of category, grammar category, which is present progressive or present continuous questions and responses. So when you want to move the conversation to the things that are happening now, you can use this question. So, what are you verbing on now? What are you verbing on now? For example, what are you working on now? Or what are you making now? What are you doing now? I have this on here because we tend to use working on a lot in this question to mean generally what kinds of projects or what kinds of activities. So on is in parentheses here. We don't need to use it with making or doing though. So what are you verbing now? The answer also uses this same progressive form. I'm working on new software. Or I'm making a website. Or I'm taking language classes. So again, we're using the progressive form to show that that activity is continuing. We've asked with the progressive form as well to show that we expect there's a continuing action happening too. Okay, great. So finally, I want to take a look in this category at this question too. Are you still verbing? Are you still verbing? This is extremely similar to this one that we talked about earlier. Have you been verbing lately? So this is one that we use to talk about past activities or activities that started in the past and continue to the present. This one, are you still verbing, is asking, is that a present activity for you? And this still shows that you remember that was the other person's activity in the past. So, for example, if you know your friend really liked cooking, you might say to them, are you still cooking a lot? Which means today, at this point in time, is that an activity you are doing? Using still shows you remember that that was their favorite activity or something like that. So still can help you to express that you remember something about the other person. Are you still cooking? Are you still traveling a lot? Are you still working a lot? And so on. So this question, actually, we can respond to it with the same answers that we practiced earlier. Yes, all the time, here and there, now and then, and other adverbs of frequency. Yes, sometimes, and so on. So this is a very straightforward, easy yes or no question. All right, let's go to the last point for today's lesson, future tense questions. So when you're catching up with someone, maybe you tend to start with the past, right? What did you do? What have you been doing? And so on. How is this? How is that? And then you talk about what's coming up next, right? So how do you ask about someone's future plans? Here's a very general question you can use. What are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? So we use going to here because we're asking the other person about the plans they have already decided for themselves. We do not use what will you do next? We don't use this because that doesn't sound like a plan the other person made. We use will, those grammar points, when we're not sure about something or when we've just decided that thing. So if you ask this question, what are you going to do next? It's going to prompt, or they're probably going to reply with their next planned activity. For example, I'm going to start a new company. I'm going to start a new company. Or I'm going to relax. I'm going to relax. Or if they're not sure, you might get a response like this. I'm not sure yet. I'll probably do some research. I'm not sure yet. I'll probably do some research. Here you'll notice I've used will. I will. This is the reduced form of I will. I will probably do some research. We like to use I will probably do this and this and this when we're not 100% sure, but we have an idea. I'll probably do this. So you might see will used in response to this question when someone is not 100% sure about their activities. Okay, great. So we've covered a lot of different grammar points, but we use all of these together to catch up with someone. So as I said, we typically start from the past, we catch up on the things we missed, and then we talk about what's happening now, and then we talk about what they're going to do in the future. So I hope that this lesson helps you to see how these different grammar points work together and helps you to understand some of the small key differences in the questions and in the responses that we looked at in this lesson. So I hope that this helped you a lot, and I hope that you can use this in your catch-up conversations with your friends, your family members, your classmates, and so on. All right, so that will be the end of this lesson, but I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making some example conversations, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Also, if you like this lesson, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about how to use the word once. Let's get started. For this lesson, I have 3 categories of meaning for the word once. We'll break these down. And then I have 1 list of expressions that feature the word once. So we'll take a look at the specific meanings of this word, and then we'll look at some special meanings at the end of the lesson. So let's start with the first meaning. The first meaning of once is one time, one time. So let's take a look at these example sentences and break down how the word once is used here. First example, I've been to Europe once. I've been to Europe once. In this example sentence, once comes at the end of the sentence and means exactly one time. So we could replace the word once with one time, and the sentence would still be correct and it would have the same meaning. I've been to Europe one time. So this is probably the most common use of once. Let's take a look at the next example sentence. She said she rode a horse once when she was a little kid. She said she rode a horse once when she was a little kid. So again, with this use of once, we can replace once with one time, and the sentence keeps the meaning. She said she rode a horse one time when she was a little kid. So again, this use of once means one time only. Okay? Let's continue to the next example sentence now. Can you keep a secret just this once? Can you keep a secret just this once? So I wanted to include this example sentence for this part right here, just this once. It's like saying just this one time or this one time only. So sometimes when people want to make a special request, they'll use the expression just this once or please do this just once. It sounds like just one time. Please do this thing just one time. So this is one example. Can you keep a secret just this once? It's like saying, I only want to ask this of you one time. So again, we can simply replace this word once with one time and we keep the meaning, but once is a little bit more efficient. Okay, let's continue on to the last two examples. The last two examples use negatives, which I think are very important to talk about with this word too. Let's take a look. First, my date didn't ask me a question once. My date didn't ask me a question once. So in this situation, the speaker is talking about their date. So the person they went on a date with. We call the other person our date. So in this situation, we have a negative. The person didn't ask me a question once. So the same one time meaning applies here. That means, this sentence means, my date didn't ask me a question even one time. So this use of once that we often see with this negative form tends to take the feeling of even one time. Like we're kind of surprised or shocked in some way. You have some expectation, right? If you go on a date with someone, you expect probably they're going to ask you some questions, right? So this person is expressing some shock and surprise. Not even one time is what this sentence expresses. Let's look at another example of this kind of once. We worked so hard to cook a nice dinner, but our guests didn't comment on the food even once. So again, we worked so hard to cook a nice dinner, but our guests didn't comment on the food even once. So again, this once is like saying one time, and again, we have this even feeling here. In this case, I included the word even. So again, we're emphasizing we expected some comment about the food. We worked really hard to cook it, so you think maybe the other person will have some comment about it. This is so delicious. Where did you find the recipe? What's in this? And so on. There are many comments we can make, so we probably expect some kind of comment when we make something for someone else. But the speaker is expressing surprise or shock. They didn't comment even one time, is what this expresses. So you can use these negative patterns to express that kind of shock. And we sometimes do this, and it really helps us see, like, wow, this person didn't meet expectations at all. So all of these sentences express the meaning of one time, literally just one time, one instance of something. Okay, with this in mind, let's continue to the second group, the second category for meaning for this lesson. This category is formerly, or at a past point in time. So a key here, something that you can use as kind of a hint, is that often this use of once refers to something that happened in the past, in the far past. Not like yesterday or last week, but when you're talking about history, for example, you might see this use of once. So let's break down these example sentences. This city was once very popular for its exciting nightlife. This city was once very popular for its exciting nightlife. So this once, you'll notice it appears in the middle of the sentence. It comes after this was, right? So we're talking about a past condition or a past status of the city. This city was once. So this position here shows us in context as well that it's not so much about one time, as in one instance of something, but rather one time in terms of a past point in time. So we're not talking about like one case of something, we're talking about one past point in time. So in this situation, we can replace once with formerly. This city was formerly very popular. Or we could say, this city was, at a past point in time, very popular for its exciting nightlife. The nuance here then is that this fact has changed. So in the past, at a point in time, it was very popular for its exciting nightlife. However, now it's not popular for its nightlife. So we use this once often to emphasize some kind of change from a condition in the past. Let's look at one more example. Her company was once a fun, relaxed place to work. Her company was once a fun, relaxed place to work. So again, we have this once here. This refers to a past point in time or a former condition. So this sentence is saying, in the past, at a past point in time, her company was a fun and relaxed place to work. So the nuance here is now it's not a fun, relaxed place to work. Maybe it's very stressful and it's very difficult. So this use of once refers to some kind of past point in time. You can kind of see the context is very different here. We're talking about very different topics over here. We're talking about a city, a company, some kind of condition. Whereas when we talked about one-time experiences, we're talking about travel, conversations, personal experiences, and so on. These aren't so much about conditions. Here, we're talking about conditions a bit more. So that's another context hint you can use to help you understand which once is the meaning here. Okay, let's continue to the last use, the last category of meaning. It's as soon as, as soon as. So let's break down these examples. First, call me once you finish work. Call me once you finish work. A very, very common request. So in this case, we can substitute as soon as for once here. Call me as soon as you finish work is also 100% correct, but once is a little more efficient. So this once, you'll notice, comes after a verb expression, yeah? It's like a command. Call me once you finish work. This is saying, call me the moment you finish work, or in other words, as soon as you finish work. It's like asking for a very quick thing to happen once or as soon as something else is complete. So when this is done, please do this. We can use once to do this very efficiently to communicate this. Okay, let's look at the next example of this meaning. He can make the rent payment once he gets paid. He can make the rent payment once he gets paid. So in this case, the topic is paying rent. So to make a rent payment means to give the person who owns your house or who owns your apartment money for the month. That's the rent payment. He can make the rent payment once he gets paid. Once he gets paid. So again, we have this as soon as meaning here. So he can make the rent payment. This will happen after he gets paid. So when this happens, the rent payment will be made. We use once to express this sequence. As soon as A, B. We use once to do this. Okay, so these are the three most common uses of once generally. There are a couple of other uses that are a bit less common and they're kind of specific to certain situations, but in most cases these three will be great for everyday communication. So keep in mind some of the context clues that I talked about here. Personal experiences and conversations for one time, conditions and statuses for past points in time, and verbs, actions for as soon as. Okay, great. So now let's move along to some expressions that feature once. These are some very common expressions that use the word once, and the meanings are sometimes very different from those we discussed earlier in the lesson. So let's break them down. First, we have at once, at once. This means immediately or right away. It can also, in some more formal situations, it might sound a little old-fashioned, it can also be used to mean both. So let's take a look at some example sentences. First, call an ambulance at once. Call an ambulance at once. So an ambulance is an emergency medical car. So there's an emergency, call an ambulance at once. Means call an ambulance right now, immediately. It's important. So we can use at once to express this. One more, he came home at once. He came home immediately. He came home right away. So at once expresses this feeling of doing something immediately at the moment. Lastly, I want to give one example of this both use. So this example, as I said, sounds a little bit old-fashioned and we don't use it so much. Maybe we'll see it in writing, some writing pieces somewhere, but we don't use it as much in everyday communication. Let's take a look though. The song was at once sad and beautiful. The song was at once sad and beautiful. So this means both. The song was both sad and beautiful. So this at once, if you look at it and you think, does this mean immediately? Does this mean right away? It doesn't seem to make sense in this situation. Like immediately? The song was immediately sad and beautiful? It sounds strange, right? So this at once is kind of like saying at the same time or simultaneously. The song was simultaneously sad and beautiful. So again, as I said, this isn't so commonly used today, but you might see it from time to time. Okay, let's move on to the next expression. The next expression is once and for all, once and for all. We use this typically after we've been working on a challenge for a while, or we've been trying to solve a problem, we've been working hard as a sports team or as a company, something like that, and we get to the last step. We want to make a statement about the last step or the final step. We use once and for all sometimes to do this. So this expression is like saying definitely or finally or for the last time. So let's look at our examples. First, let's win the game and show everyone we're the best team once and for all. Let's win the game and show everyone we're the best team once and for all. So this is something a sports team might say at the championship game, the last game of the year. So let's show them we're the best team once and for all. It sounds like we want to show other people that we are the best. We are here at the last stage. We're going to do this for the last time. Let's make it big. That's kind of the feeling of once and for all. Let's look at one more example. Her great plan solved the company's sales problems once and for all. Her great plan solved the company's sales problems once and for all. So in this example sentence, we know the problem. The company has some kind of sales problem, and this person created a great plan. So her great plan solved this problem finally at the end after lots and lots of struggles, once and for all. So it's kind of like saying, you can think of this once part as kind of like being with one action or one instance or one case, the problem was solved or they were able to overcome the challenge forever. That's kind of one way to understand this. With one movement or with one action, they were able to make a change forever. That's kind of the feeling of once and for all. Okay, let's move on to our next expression. The next one, you may already know, it's every once in a while. Every once in a while. Please note, native speakers sometimes write every once and a while. Incorrect. Every once in a while. In a while. So this expression means sometimes or occasionally. We like to use it in very casual conversations, and we usually say it very quickly, every once in a while. So let's break it down. I like to go to the movies every once in a while. I like to go to the movies every once in a while. We can replace every once in a while with sometime, and it creates exactly the same meaning. Again, every once in a while just sounds a little bit more casual. Yeah, I like to go to the movies every once in a while. That's how a native speaker would probably use this expression. One more. We eat at expensive restaurants every once in a while. We eat at expensive restaurants every once in a while. So again, we're expressing this feeling of occasionally, every once in a while. Again, this is a set expression, which just means sometimes. So, okay, let's continue to the last one. The last one is actually two, but they have the same meaning. So they are once again and once more. Once again and once more. These both mean one more time. one more time. So I wanted to include these because I know lots of learners like to request from their teacher, can you say that once more? Or can you say that one more time? Just be careful not to mix them. Sometimes I hear learners say like, once more time, something like that, or just one more. No, neither of those are really correct. Make sure to say, can you say that once more? Or can you say that one more time? So once again and once more both mean to do something one more time. So our examples. First, once again, thank you for coming today. Once again, thank you for coming today. So we sometimes do this when we're giving presentations to mean, I already said this, but I'm going to say it one more time. This is usually done, like I said, in presentation and speaking situations. And in this case, typically the expression comes at the beginning of the sentence. Also, sometimes people will use this expression when they feel frustrated. Like if someone asks a question repeatedly, they get the same question many, many times, or if there's a rude behavior or something like that, that person in charge, they might use once again to express their frustration, to say, once again, please no talking during the presentation, something like that. So that kind of tone with this expression means I have to say this again, I'm saying it again. So please pay attention to the speaker's tone. Sometimes it's very happy, right? Once again, thank you for coming. That sounds good. But sometimes we use this expression to show that we are tired of saying the same thing again. Like, once again, please be quiet, something like that. So please keep an eye out, I guess, keep an ear out for the speaker's tone. Okay, last example is, let's practice this part once more. Let's practice this part once more. So again, let's practice this part one more time. We can use the two interchangeably. Or we could say, let's practice this part once again. So these all mean one more time. It's up to you to choose whichever you prefer. Just as I said, make sure not to mix them, not once more time or just one more. Make sure to say once more or one more time. Okay, great. So I hope that this lesson helped you to understand the different ways that we use the word once. In lots of situations, we use it to mean just one time. Sometimes we use it to talk about past points in time, past conditions. Sometimes it means as soon as, and of course we have many expressions that also use once. And there are other expressions I didn't cover in this lesson, but I can hopefully cover them at a future point in time. Awesome, so I hope this video helped you to be able to use the word once with a little more confidence. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making some sentences with the word once, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Also, if you like this lesson, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye!
Hi everybody and welcome back to Top Words. My name is Alicia and today we're going to talk about 10 expressions for explaining what you want when shopping. Let's go. I'm looking for. The first expression is I'm looking for. I'm looking for. You use I'm looking for before the item or before the place you want to go to, or before the thing you are searching for. So I'm looking for the sports department. I'm looking for shoes. I'm looking for a new car. All of these we can use I'm looking for when speaking to a salesperson or to staff at the place you're shopping at. Can you help me find? The next expression is can you help me find? Can you help me find blah, blah, blah. Can you help me find gluten-free pasta? Can you help me find my car? Can you help me find my keys? Can you help me find my child? If you need help finding something specific in a store usually, you can ask can you help me find blah, blah, blah. To ask someone for help. Do you know where is? Okay, another expression you can use is do you know where something is? Do you know where cleaner is? Do you know where pasta is? Do you know where turkey is? Do you know where plants are? I don't know. Whatever it is you're looking for, you can use do you know where something is or are if you're using the plural form of a noun. So do you know where soaps are, for example. So if you use the plural form of a noun, please use are at the end of this sentence. Do you know where blah, blah, blah is? A very useful expression is, do you know where the restroom is? Do you have this in a size? The next expression is, do you have this in a
blah, blah, blah size. So you can replace this blah, blah, blah. You can replace this space with the size you are searching for, the size you would like. Do you have this in a small size? Do you have this in a large size? Or you can use the comparative form. Do you have this in a smaller size? Do you have this in a larger size? You can also use this with numbers when shoe shopping, for example. Like, do you have this in a 24 centimeter size, or do you have this in a 26 centimeter size? So you can replace numbers in this sort of gap in the sentence, or you can use comparative forms or the name of a size. Small, large, extra large, medium, extra small, whatever. Very useful. Does this come in any other colors? So the next question you can ask is, does this come in any other colors? Does this come in any other colors? Means, are there other colors of this product? Does this product have other colors? We use come in this case. Does this come in another color? So imagine coming from the manufacturer or coming from the maker. Does this come in other colors? This is kind of how you can remember to use the word come in this expression. So if you want to know about other color options, just use this expression. Does this come in, you can also change this to, does this come in blue? Does this come in red? Does this come in green? Does this come in any other colors, for example? So use this to check about your color options when you are shopping. How do I? Okay, the next one is how do I, blah, blah, blah. How do I, and then some action. So how do I sign up for a member's card? How do I turn on this camera? How do I use this gadget, for example? How do I use this application? Typically, we're going to follow how do I with some kind of action, some kind of verb phrase. So you need to know how to do something, how to perform an action. You can use the how do I, blah, blah, blah pattern to ask that question. I want something that. Okay, the next expression you can use is I want something that's blah, blah, blah. So you can use this expression to describe the features you are looking for in a product. I want something that can be used in many languages, or I want something that I can use quickly, for example. So describe the features of the item you're looking for with this phrase. I want something that is delicious if you're at a restaurant. One more, I want something that doesn't need battery power. Where's the register? Okay, the next expression is where is the register? Where is the register? Use this expression when you are ready to pay. You can use this at a department store, at a regular boutique, at a small shop, at a restaurant, whatever. Where is the register? Where can I pay? Very useful. If it's not very clear to you, just ask a staff person. Where's the register? Where's the register? Where's the register? I'm ready to pay. That's what I do when I'm searching for the register. Where's the register? Can I look at? The next expression is, can I look at blah, blah, blah? Sometimes when you're shopping, there's like a display case and it's locked. So if you want to look at something more closely that's inside the display case, you can use the expression, can I look at something more closely? Or can I look at that watch? Can I look at those sunglasses? Can I look at that wallet? Can I look at that ring? If you use can I look at, like, the shop staff, of course, know you mean, like, look more closely at. Like, yes, you can see it. You can see that right now. You can look at it. You can, like, direct your eyes toward that object. But if you say, can I look at blah, 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 it means you want to see more closely that item. So the staff will take that out of the case for you, and you can take a look at it more closely. So can I look at blah, blah, blah? Or you can also use can I have a look at as well. Both are fine. Okay. Can I try on? The next expression is can I try blah, blah, blah on? Or you can keep the phrasal verb try on together. So can I try on blah, blah, blah? Both are fine. Can I try something on, or can I try on something? Both are great. When you are clothes shopping, or maybe shopping for hats or shoes or something, you can use this expression to show you want to put that item on your body as a test. So can I try on those shoes? Or can I try this sweater on? Or can I try that hat on? Can I try on that shirt, for example? If you want to try something on your body, use this expression. Can I try that on? Can I try this pair of shoes on, please? All right, so those are 10 words for explaining what you want when shopping. I hope that those are useful. So if you have any questions or if you've had any interesting comments or questions when shopping, let us know in the comments section. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to us too so you don't miss anything good. And check us out at EnglishClass101.com for all kinds of other good study materials. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Top Words, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye. Hi everybody, welcome back to Top Words. My name is Alicia, and today we're going to talk about 10 common food adjectives. So let's go. Salty. The first adjective is salty, salty. So we use salty to describe a food which has a strong salt-ish, salt-like taste. So salt, that white stuff, you might have table salt or kosher salt or sea salt. All different kinds of salt. If the taste of salt is very strong in your meal, you can say it's salty. That chicken is very salty, or I don't like salty foods, or things which are very salty dehydrate me, or be careful or it'll get too salty, for example. Salty refers to the taste of salt. Sweet. All right, the next adjective is sweet. Sweet is a word we use to describe something that has a sugar-like or a sugary taste. This can mean actual sugar, like white sugar or brown sugar. We can also use sweet to talk about foods which are naturally sweet, like fruit, for example. So apples or oranges or pears, peaches. These are foods which are naturally sweet. We can say both processed sweetness is sweet, and we can say natural sweetness is sweet. We use the word sweet to describe all of these. We can use it to describe desserts as well. Sauces too. Anything is fine. Anything that tastes a little sugary, we can use the word sweet to describe that. So, for example, I don't like sweet foods, or I really like eating sweet food at the end of the day, or what's your favorite sweet thing to eat, or this apple is really sweet, it's great. Savory. The next word is savory. Savory is a word we use to describe something that has a strong flavor, but it is not sweet. So it's not necessarily, maybe it's not salty. The flavor isn't overwhelming. There's not too much flavor, but there's a very clear and strong flavor that is not sweet. There's not a sugary flavor. So it's especially used for meats because we use seasonings a lot for like the outsides of meats. So we could say, oh, this roast chicken is really savory. Or we could use like for sauces too, which often have many different spices and herbs and things. We could say that sauce is really savory. So something which has a strong flavor, but it's not it's not so sweet. We can use the word savory to describe that. Savory. So, yeah, that steak was so savory. It was delicious. Slimy. The next word is slimy. Slimy. I don't like slimy foods. That is true. Slimy refers to foods that they're not quite liquid. They're not like water, but they're not solid either. They're in this in-between area. So if you cut them, for example, and you pull them apart, you might see like these stringy pieces or like almost like liquid, these weird, like almost like fibers, but they kind of fall down. The noun form of that is slime, we say. It's this kind of gross, a little sticky feeling substance. So foods that have that texture are slimy foods. So for example, raw egg is slimy, or okra is slimy, or some fermented foods are slimy. These are foods that have a slimy texture. So some people, like myself, it's really hard for us to eat slimy foods. So we can say, I don't like slimy foods, or I need to eat something else with slimy foods, or ew, that's so slimy, I don't want to eat that. Decadent. The next word is decadent. Decadent is a word we use often to describe desserts. So decadent means like self-indulgent, like it's more than we need. It's maybe unreasonable how luxurious this thing is. We use it a lot for very high-calorie foods and often for very sugary and sweet foods. So I could say my favorite dessert is a decadent chocolate cake, or oh my gosh, that meal was decadent. It was so beautiful. Or I can't believe how decadent that wedding cake was. It was amazing. So something that's just over the top, that's too much, that's a little crazy, self-indulgent, it's just selfish. We can say it's decadent. That's a decadent food. Bland. The next word is bland. We use bland to talk about a food that has very little flavor or no flavor. Some foods are naturally bland. They naturally don't really have flavor. Other foods, however, we use bland to create a negative connotation, to create negative meaning. If a food that should have a lot of flavor does not have a lot of flavor, we can say that's bland, that's really bland. So if I go to eat, like, I don't know, Thai food, for example, and it should have maybe a strong spicy taste, but there's nothing, I don't taste anything, I can say, oh, this was really bland. Why is it so bland? That's strange. If, however, you're eating a food that you expect to be bland and therefore it is bland, you don't really need to make a comment. Like I could say, tofu is bland, but it's healthy. So we don't expect to have any flavor, and that's pretty normal. We can say, it's bland, it's pretty bland. And it's sort of a neutral comment. But you can say, oh, this is bland, to make a negative comment about a food that you expect to have a lot of flavor. So bland. Also be careful with your pronunciation. Bland, make the L sound very clearly, not brand, bland. Okay, so bland foods, little or no flavor. Sour. The next word is sour. Sour. We use sour. Anything that makes us feel like maybe your face kind of squeezes like a little bit when you eat this thing. It's hard for many people to eat sour foods. There's like an acid taste in your mouth almost. So some people really like sour candy as well, like this very acid plus sweet sort of taste. Many people really like that. But sour foods, for example, are like citrus fruits. So like lemon is very sour, or grapefruit is rather sour. This very like strong acid taste, we can say is sour. That's a sour food. So depending on your preferences, maybe you can eat really sour things or you can't eat sour things at all. I like sour things. They're okay every once in a while. But super sour, not so good. Like umeboshi.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's dried plums, like in Japan, are very sour. Umeboshi. Can't do it. Can't do it. It's just crazy. So sour, sour. In a sentence, I have a hard time eating really sour things. Bitter. Okay, the next word is bitter, bitter. So bitter refers to something that has, like sour, maybe it makes our mouth kind of like squeeze up a little bit. It creates the same feeling in our mouth as sour, but bitter doesn't have that acid feeling. Bitter doesn't feel like that like bright, like citrusy sensation in our mouth. Bitter is sort of like, we feel it more in like the back of our mouth, I feel like. So foods, for example, like spinach, or like maybe bitter beer, like beer with lots and lots of hops is quite bitter, or like burned sugar is extremely bitter. So these have like kind of a deeper flavor to them. Sour has like a very bright acidic flavor. Bitter is kind of like a deep and sort of dark, like kind of almost unpleasant feeling if it's extremely bitter. Bitter foods, yeah, like arugula, I think, is another one. Kale, I think, is also quite bitter. So these are things that are not unpleasant, but that have a strong kind of vegetative taste, I suppose you could say. So bitter, bitter. So in an example sentence, many people enjoy drinking very bitter beers these days. Raw. The next word is raw. Raw means uncooked, not cooked at all. Something that is raw has not been exposed to any cooking technique at all. So just as is. So like we can say raw meat or raw chicken or raw vegetables. So no cooking, no preparation, nothing has happened to that food. That's just raw as it is. So some people like to have food as raw as possible. Sometimes raw food is dangerous. For example, eating raw chicken is very dangerous because of salmonella. So raw. Raw means uncooked, totally not cooked. Raw chicken is really dangerous. Burnt. Last word is burnt. Burnt. Burnt means cooked too much. Cooked too much. So you put a piece of bread in the toaster, it becomes toast, but it's black. You say it's burnt. Burnt is the adjective form. My toast is burnt. Ew, I don't want to eat burnt cookies. Gross. Or like, burnt popcorn smells terrible. That's a popular one. Burnt popcorn, I think. But burnt is the adjective form. Burnt. It's burnt. Ugh, gross. So this one, my steak is burnt. So those are 10 common food adjectives. Are there any other words that you use to talk about food or to describe the food that you like? Let us know in the comments. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. It's super helpful for us. And make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can check us out at EnglishClass101.com for other words about food and some more things that you can explore as well. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Top Words, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Hi everybody and welcome back to Top Words. My name is Alicia and today we're going to talk about 10 words for emphasis. These are words that you can use before a verb or before an adjective to emphasize that word. Let's go. Really. The first word is really, 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 really. Really is one of the most basic emphasis words. If you like, you can check the video I did about really and the next word in this list, very. I talk about the differences in depth between really and very in a video called Really versus Very on this YouTube channel, which was posted in October-ish of 2017. Go check that out if you like. So really is a word we can use before an adjective to add emphasis. We can also use really before a verb. This is a key difference between really and very. So before an adjective or before a verb to slightly enhance, to slightly emphasize the meaning of the word following really. So I really like pizza, or it's really hot in here, for example. Or I really hope you had fun today. He really likes soccer. Very. Okay, the next word is very. So very is used in a way that is similar to really. However, we cannot use very before a verb. We can only use very to modify an adjective. We can use very before an adjective. So it's very hot in here. I think pizza is very good, for example. But I cannot use very before a verb. So please be careful. This is a difference between very and really. She's a very good writer. So. The next emphasizer is so. So is very casual. We can put so before a lot of things, and so is fun because we can stretch out the vowel sound. We can say so to emphasize with our voice instead of choosing a different word. But it's very, very casual. So you can say, you're so funny, or that was so good, or I'm so bummed out right now. Bummed out means sad. I'm so happy, or I'm so tired today, for example. So use so, and you can make it shorter or longer to change the level of emphasis in your situation. So. Way. The next word is way. Way is also very casual. Depending on where you're from in the world, you may or may not hear way used as an emphasizer. Way is used a lot on the west coast of the USA. Way can be used alone as well, like similar to I know or yeah as an agreement. People might sometimes say way, like in response to someone saying no way, like I don't believe you, no way. People can respond saying way, like yes. You will hear this sometimes, but you will also hear it used before an adjective to emphasize the adjective, like this food was way good, or she was way good at singing, or this was like way bad, man. So again, I'm using kind of like this really casual, almost boyish way of speaking. Way is typically used in extremely casual situations, and it tends to be more among young people, specifically young men, but young women use it too as well. So way. In a sentence, this burger is way good. Super. Super is the next word. Super is another very casual emphasis word. We can use super before an adjective to change the emphasis of the word. We can use it before positive and negative adjectives. My test was super hard, or oh, that turkey was super good, or the burrito I ate yesterday was super good. My barbecue was super fun. So super is very casual, very friendly. It sounds also not so serious. We can use it before negative adjectives, so like, ooh, that's super disgusting, or oh my gosh, this is super stressful this week, for example. So super, super. Incredibly. The next word is incredibly, incredibly. We see the word incredible in this word. The root is incredible. Incredible is like, maybe it's extraordinary, it's difficult to believe, it's awesome, it's great, incredibly. But we can use this word before a negative adjective or before a positive adjective. So we can say, this was incredibly good, incredibly interesting book, incredibly terrible haircut as well. So this is just a stronger emphasis word. It's not so casual though. You might see this in writing, or you might see it in more formal spoken situations. You can use it in speaking, I suppose, but if you use the word incredibly when you're speaking, it's going to sound more extreme. It's going to sound more like you're adding more emphasis than if you chose a word like really or very. So incredibly has increased emphasis about it. Incredibly. For example, this dessert is incredibly delicious. Nice. Ridiculously. The next word is ridiculously, ridiculously. So ridiculous is the root here. Ridiculous means like strange or crazy, or it's hard to believe. Something is so ridiculous. Ridiculously, adjective. So again, positive and negative adjectives can be applied here. This is also a rather strong emphasizer. So it's stronger than so, very, really. It's about the same level as incredibly or ridiculously. But because the word is ridiculous, I feel that incredibly is a little more positive. We can use ridiculously, like ridiculously good or ridiculously funny, but it sounds a little like maybe not quite as serious or not quite as much praise as with incredibly, for example. So ridiculously, ridiculously is also a word we can use. My company made a ridiculously complex policy. Or this is a ridiculously difficult test, for example. So it's just, it's a bit dumb, it seems sometimes. So ridiculous, can't understand it, it's crazy. Okay, amazingly. The next word is amazingly, amazingly. So the root is amazing here, which implies a good meaning. It implies a positive meaning. You'll see this used in front of positive adjectives, but again, we can use it in front of negative adjectives. So she's an amazingly good singer, or this was an amazingly delicious meal. We can use it in front of negative words like, whoa, that's amazingly bad. But using a word like amazing with bad creates kind of odd contrast. So you might hear people speaking and writing with this interesting contrast, but maybe they're choosing those words to create that contrast, to create that interesting feeling there. So I tend to use amazingly more with positive adjectives. In this sentence, that singer is amazingly talented. Unbelievably. Unbelievably is a great word because you can use it equally with equal level enthusiasm for both positive and negative situations. So believe is the root. Un means not. So not believable, in other words. So something is so extreme, something is so extreme, something is so much whatever the adjective is, that it's difficult to believe. You can't believe it. So it's a very, very strong emphasizer in this way. So unbelievably good or unbelievably bad. You can use both of them to create a very strong emphasis. So how was your day today? Unbelievably good. Or how was your day today? Unbelievably bad. Both are perfectly fine and both are very acceptable, but they create totally opposite meanings. So just be cautious of the type of adjective you use after this word, unbelievably. In this sentence, the movie was unbelievably long. Extremely. The next word is extremely, extremely. So the root here is extreme, extreme. So I would say extremely is like a step above very, but not quite at incredible. So it's like very, maybe extremely, and incredibly, perhaps. Extremely is kind of like a nice intermediate level emphasis word, I feel. So extremely, again, we can use it positive and negative adjectives. So this was extremely good, this was extremely bad. I kind of feel like it's pretty easy to remember this one as well. Something is extremely good, extremely bad. It's easy to use this one. You can apply it in many different situations. It's not super formal. It's not super casual. So you can try this one out a lot. If you're looking to move up from like really or so or very, you can try to use extremely. You'll sound a little more formal, a little bit more formal. Give it a try. But just remember, extreme is the root, so you're strongly emphasizing something. So let's give some examples. This is an extremely difficult task, or it's extremely hot today, or it's extremely humid outside, for example. So extremely, extreme. So those are 10 words that you can use for emphasis, 10 words to emphasize your adjectives a little bit. So give them a try. If there are any other emphasis words that you like or that you're interested in, please let us know in the comment section for sure. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. It's super helpful for all of us. Check us out at EnglishClass101.com if you want to find more stuff like this, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Top Words, and I'll see you again soon. Bye! Hi everybody, welcome back to Know Your Verbs. My name is Alicia, and in this episode, we're going to talk about the verb find. Let's get started. The basic definition of the verb find is to encounter something or to encounter someone, often accidentally, not on purpose. Examples. I found $20 in my coat pocket. She found a great apartment. Now let's look at the conjugations for this verb. Present, find, finds. Past, found. Past participle, found. Progressive, finding. Now let's talk about some additional meanings for this verb. To discover by searching or experimenting. Let's look at some examples. We found that 20% of our students are from Brazil. He was surprised to find that cooking wasn't so difficult. So these expressions show us the use of find to mean to discover something by experimenting or by searching. In the first example sentence, it's probably by searching through data. So we found that 20% of our students were from Brazil. That means we probably checked data. We were looking for something, searching for something, and we discovered this information. So we can use find to express that. In the second example sentence, it's more through experimentation. So he found that cooking wasn't as difficult as he thought. So this implies, it doesn't directly say, but we can guess from this sentence that by trying cooking, by experimenting a little bit with cooking, he discovered it wasn't difficult. So we use find to express this. The next additional meaning is to have a feeling about someone or something. Examples. I don't find him funny. She found her boss to be a kind person. So these uses of find refer to having an opinion about someone or something. We commonly use an adjective, or we commonly use to be before a noun phrase here. So in the first example sentence, we see an adjective. I don't find him funny, which means I don't think he's funny. I don't find him funny, though. So this sounds a little bit more formal than I don't think. In the second example sentence, she found her boss to be a kind person. So we are using to be there to link the boss with kind person. She found her boss to be a kind person. So this does not mean she discovered her boss and some kind of kind person relationship. No, it means she had an opinion of her boss as being a kind person. So this means an opinion about someone or an opinion about something. The next additional meaning is to make a legal judgment. So this is a very specific use of the word find. You might see this in police, crime shows, legal TV shows. Examples. We find the defendant not guilty. The judge found her guilty. So we tend to use this before one of two situations, guilty situations or not guilty situations. What do these mean? Guilty means a person committed a crime. They did something bad in the eyes of their law. Not guilty means they did not commit a crime. So when a person goes to court, a court is a place where laws are enforced, where people discuss, in theory, whether a crime was committed or not. When people go to court and the decision is reached, we will often use the expression to be found guilty or not guilty. So this use of found, in this case past tense, this use of found or find refers to the legal decision that's made. In the first example sentence, we find the defendant not guilty. It means we, the court, have determined that the defendant did not commit the crime. So here, in the first example sentence, we find the defendant not guilty. Defendant, we see the root there, defend, is someone accused of committing a crime. So the person who is in trouble, perhaps, they are defending themselves. So in the expression, we find the defendant not guilty, it means we, the court, the people in the court, have decided that this person is not guilty. This person did not commit a crime. We find the defendant not guilty. This is a very quick and easy way to describe a legal decision. In the second example sentence, the judge found her guilty. A judge is a person who's like the top of a court in US legal systems. The judge makes the decision here. The judge found her guilty means the judge decided, the judge determined that she committed a crime. So you'll see find and found in past tense used to talk about these legal decisions. Quite common in TV shows as well. Okay, let's move on now to some variations with this verb. The first variation actually has two meanings. The expression is to find oneself. So to find oneself means to understand your condition or to understand your situation. Let's look at some examples. She found herself alone with tons of work to do. You're going to find yourself in bad shape if you don't take care of yourself. So here you see this is used reflexively. She found herself alone. So in this case, she found herself. She is actually the subject of the verb and the object. She found herself alone with tons of work to do. So that means she realized her situation, a situation related to herself. So she found herself alone. In the second example sentence, though, you're going to find yourself in bad shape. Means you are going to realize that your body is in bad condition if you don't take care of yourself, is what this means. So again, you're gonna find yourself. So this is used reflexively. You're gonna find yourself. Subject and object are the same there. So this is one way to use to find oneself. The second way to use to find yourself, it means to understand how you ought to be, to understand how you should be. Let's look at some examples. He says he's moving to New York to find himself. I found myself when I started working in this industry. So when we use the expression, I found myself, we tend to use it when we talk about ourselves, like I. We tend to use it about ourselves a lot. Like, I want to find myself. It doesn't mean like locate your body. It means like to understand how you should be. So this means like, what's the best job for me? Or what's the best lifestyle for me? What's the best city for me? These are all components, all parts to finding yourself. We use the expression to find yourself to mean like understanding how your life should be or what is your best life. So the process of understanding that. So we use to find yourself to talk about it. The last variation is to find somebody or something out. This expression means to learn information for the first time. And when it's used for people, it's like because they did something bad, you learn about it. Okay, let's look at some examples. Oh no, she found out about our surprise birthday party plans. The criminal didn't think he'd ever be found out. In the first example sentence, it's that someone learned about a surprise birthday party. They found out something they were not supposed to learn about. We use find out to refer to the fact that it was like secret information or information that was supposed to be like revealed later, perhaps. Something you don't really want to share, but someone discovers, perhaps accidentally. In this case, it's an accident. She discovered a surprise birthday party plan. She found out about the plan. In the second example sentence, we see it's about a person. The criminal didn't think he'd ever be found out. That means the criminal didn't think he'd ever be discovered. That he'd is he would. The criminal did not think he would ever be discovered, meaning he didn't think anyone would discover or realize the crime he committed. So to find out a person is like to discover their wrongdoing. To find out some information is like just to discover information that maybe you weren't supposed to find out or you weren't supposed to discover that information. So those are hopefully a few new ways for you to use the verb find. If you have any questions or comments or know a different way of using find, please feel free to let us know in the comment section of this video. Of course, don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you liked this lesson, subscribe to our channel if you have not already, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you as you study English. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Know Your Verbs, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye! Hi everybody, welcome back to Know Your Verbs. My name is Alicia, and in this lesson, we're going to talk about the verb give. Let's get started. Let's begin with the basic definition of the verb give. The basic definition of give is to provide someone with something, or to offer someone something. Some examples. My boss gave me a raise. Please give her this letter. Now let's look at the conjugations for this verb. Present, give, gives. Past, gave. Past participle, given. Progressive, giving. Now let's talk about some additional meanings for this verb. The first additional meaning is to cause something or create something. Let's look at some examples. Scary movies give him nightmares. You just gave me a great idea. So this use of give doesn't refer to providing someone with something. It refers to causing something or producing, creating something. In the first example sentence, we see scary movies give him nightmares. Another way to say this is scary movies cause him to have nightmares, or rather, watching scary movies causes him to have nightmares. So there's this thing, in this case scary movies, which causes this other thing or produces this other thing. So we use give to explain that relationship. The second example sentence is the same. You just gave me a great idea doesn't mean someone provided someone else with a great idea, but rather this use of give means you just caused me to have a great idea. It's kind of like you helped me to make this great idea. So we use this when someone maybe makes an interesting comment or has an interesting suggestion, and that creates a new idea. That creates a new thought. So you can say, you just gave me a great idea to express that. The next additional meaning is to do an action. Let's look at some examples. Can you give me a call when you finish work? That girl is giving us a weird look. All right, so I said that the definition for this one is to do an action. It sounds quite open, but actually there are some common sort of set phrases that we use give with. So some examples of this are in these example sentences, like give me a call. Can you please give me a call when you finish work? Or that girl is giving us a weird look. So it doesn't mean, again, that someone is providing something to another person. It just means that that action or that situation is happening or has happened. So please give me a call means please call me, in other words. Or that girl is giving us a weird look means that girl is looking at us in a weird way. So to give something means that that thing, that noun phrase in many cases, is happening. So to give a something, to give someone a something might be a pattern that you encounter, which can refer to just doing an action. So some other examples might be like to give someone a push, to give someone a hand is another example, which means like to help someone. To give someone a hand means like to assist someone. So give me a boost is another example, like means help me move in an upward motion. So if you see this give me a something or give something a something, it might be this kind of perform an action sort of meaning. The next additional meaning is to loosen or become relaxed under pressure. Some examples. Be careful, the wall looks like it's going to give. The bridge gave under the weight of all the cars. So this use of give is related to pressure and related to like stretching or breaking or loosening or relaxing in some way. The first example sentence is about a wall. The wall looks like it's going to give. So imagine a situation where you're leaning against a wall, maybe on a construction site or in an old building, for example. If you're leaning against a wall, an old wall, and someone says the wall looks like it's going to give, it's like the wall appears to be about to break. So this, if the wall is perfect in this situation and a person puts pressure on the wall breaks. We use this give to talk about this happening. So the wall gave. The wall looks like it's about to give, so that means it's going to give. That's how we would express this sort of thing. We could use break. We could say the wall looks like it's going to break or maybe fall, but give is another way to express that. The second example sentence shows us a similar situation. This time it's with a bridge, and we see the past tense use of this verb. So in this case, the bridge gave under the weight of the cars means the bridge broke, or the bridge maybe like was damaged because there were so many cars. So here the bridge gave is in past tense, which refers to the bridge kind of like losing its structure because of the weight of cars. So if you see the word give paired with something like construction, building, infrastructure related, it might be related to this meaning. We don't only use it, so that was bad. We don't use it only with construction or buildings, however. We can use it for fabrics as well. So like a shirt, for example, or something that stretches easily. So we can use give to talk about that kind of relaxing or like stretching of materials. So keep an eye out for this when you're reading. Okay, let's move along now to some variations with this verb. Let's look at the first variation. The first variation is to give up. To give up. There are two meanings to give up. Let's look at the first one. To give up means to stop trying. Some examples. Give up. She's never going to go on a date with you. We gave up trying to plan a summer party. So both of these examples show situations where someone should or maybe will stop trying to do something. So in the first example sentence, give up, she's never going to go on a date with you means stop trying. So stop trying to convince this girl to go on a date with you. Give up. The second example sentence, we gave up trying to plan a summer party means we stopped trying to plan this thing. We stopped trying to make it happen. Okay, now let's look at the second meaning of give up. The second meaning of give up is to stop using something, to stop using something. Some examples. I'm trying to give up cigarettes. She gave up sugar last year. So to give up here means to stop using something. We use this for bad habits often, or maybe unhealthy things. The first example sentence, I'm trying to give up cigarettes, means I'm trying to stop smoking cigarettes. The second example sentence, she gave up sugar last year, means she stopped using sugar or she stopped eating sugar last year. So when you see give up before like something unhealthy or maybe a bad habit, it probably means that that person is trying to stop using that something. If you see it used as a command, as in the first definition, it probably means that that person should stop trying to do something. So these are the two meanings of give up: to stop trying to do something and to stop using something. The next variation is to give up on somebody or something. This means to stop making an effort, to expect that something will not have a good result. Some examples. I'm giving up on my business idea. Don't give up on your studies. So to give up on something means to stop making an effort for something, and it's because you expect the result is not going to be a good result. So please be careful. To give up on something is different from to give up something. So we talked about to give up in the first variation. This to give up on something means that you have kind of a negative expectation and you're going to stop trying to do something. In the first example sentence, I'm giving up on my business idea. It means I'm going to stop working on this idea because I don't think it's going to end well. I don't think it's going to be a positive thing. It's not going to be good. I don't expect a good result. I'm going to give up on my business idea. The second example sentence was, don't give up on your studies. Don't give up on your studies means don't stop trying to study. So in other words, keep trying to make an effort for something because it will be good in the future. Don't give up on your studies is how we can communicate that. So we can use don't before this expression to kind of give words of encouragement to something. Don't give up on this thing means continue working on this thing. So perhaps that's something many of you can think about. Don't give up on your studies. In other words, please continue your studies. The next variation is to give in. This means to finally agree to something after a long time. Some examples. He gave in and bought his kids a dog. I'll keep asking him out until he gives in. So to give in to something means to finally agree to do something, usually after a long period of being requested or a long period of being asked for something. The first example sentence is about a dog, a father buying a dog for his kids. He gave in and bought his kids a dog shows us that the father in this situation has been asked repeatedly, probably for a long time, for a dog. We know this because we see gave in, past tense. He gave in and bought his kids a dog. So when we use give in or gave in, as in past tense here, it shows us that there has been a history of requests prior to the action. So if you want to show that someone finally did something, you can use give in to express that. The second example sentence is a present tense statement though. I'll keep asking him out until he gives in. That means I'm going to continue asking this person out on a date until he finally agrees to go on a date with me, until he finally gives in. So we're looking for that agreement there. So when you want to really emphasize a lot of requests and that you finally convince someone to do something, you can use give in to express that. All right, so I hope that you found a new way of using give with this lesson. Of course, there are lots of other ways to use give, so please check out a dictionary for some more information. If you have questions or comments or want to practice making an example sentence with this verb, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Also, if you liked the video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel if you have not already, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Know Your Verbs, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. We see this in the same, the second example, okay. Hi everybody, welcome back to Know Your Verbs. My name is Alicia, and in this lesson, we're going to talk about the verb turn. Let's get started. Let's start with the basic definition of the verb turn. The basic definition of turn is to change the direction of movement or to change the direction one is facing. Some examples. Turn left at the next stoplight. She turned to the door. Now let's look at the conjugations for this verb. Present, turn, turns. Past, turned. Past participle, turned. Progressive, turning. Now let's talk about some additional meanings for this verb. The first additional meaning is to move in a circle from a fixed point. Some examples. Turn the key in the lock to open the door. He turned the handle and rolled down the window. So this use refers to something making a circular motion, turning in a circular motion, this motion, from a fixed point. So a fixed point means that the center of that circle, or like a center line there, does not move. So that means that this always turns in the same place or the same location, but we make a circular motion in some way. The first example sentence is about a key. So turn the key in the lock refers to making a circular turning, this turning motion, a circular motion in a fixed place. So this does not move, but inside this fixed place, we make this circular motion with a key. So turn the key in the lock to open the door. The second example sentence, maybe you need to know about older cars to imagine this, but in this case, he turned the handle and rolled down the window. In older cars, we saw windows that had a handle, so we had to turn, make this motion in a car to roll the window down. So we use turn to talk about this. The handle in the car is attached to the car, so it's in a fixed position, and we turn the handle in order to roll the window down. So we use turn in this way to talk about these circular motions from a point that is set, that is unmoving. Let's move along to the next additional meaning. The next meaning is to move to the next page in a book or other document. Examples. She quickly turned to the next page. Please turn to page 10 and begin reading. So this use of turn is very commonly used for books, for newspapers, for any kind of paper document, something that we can read, a physical document, or you might see it used in digital books as well. So to turn means to move from one page to another page. You might also see turn over used, like turn over the paper and read the other side, for example, but when you're reading a physical book and you want to talk about your progression of pages, when you want to talk about this sort of motion, moving to the next page, we typically use the verb turn the page. The first example sentence was, she quickly turned to the next page. So if you're really excited about a book or you want to describe someone who is, you could say, she quickly turned to the next page. So that means making this motion very quickly to move to the next page in a book. The second example sentence is perhaps something you would hear in a classroom. Please turn to page 10 and begin reading. So that means please open your book, turn until you find page 10 and begin reading there. So turn to a specific page number is something you might also hear. The next additional meaning is to use a switch to control something. Some examples. Turn up the volume. Turn down the volume. Turn off the TV. So as you can see from these example sentences, this use of turn uses a lot of prepositions. When we talk about using some kind of switch to control something else, we use prepositions like up, or off, or on, or down. So in an example sentence like turn up the volume, it means use a switch to control the volume using this motion, a turning motion, often, not always. But we use the verb turn to talk about increasing volume. So turn up the volume. The opposite, turn down the volume, means use a switch to control the volume and decrease the volume. In the example sentence, turn off the TV, it means use the controls on the TV and power off. So turn the power off. So means like don't use the TV, turn off the TV. So I mentioned that this is used for switches. So switch, of course, can mean a physical like button or a dial that you can turn. But now, of course, with like smartphones as well, we have screens we can use. So we can think of these sort of like switches. There are other methods of controlling things, other kind of technologies. Even though there's not a switch, like an actual button to push, we still use turn up, turn down, turn on, and turn off to talk about our activities with these kinds of things. So you can still use it. Some interesting combinations that you might hear here, for example, turn down the TV or turn up the TV, this actually refers to the volume of something. So some people might say turn up the TV. That means turn up the volume on the TV. The same thing in reverse. Turn down the TV means turn down the volume, decrease the volume on the TV. So when you hear this turn used along with some kind of machinery, listen for that preposition. Turn up, turn off, turn down, turn on. So there are quite a few examples that you can use here. But they basically talk about controlling things. The next additional meaning is to become, to become. Some examples. The weather turned ugly. His attitude turned from excited to disappointed when he heard the news. So turn means become in these cases. The weather turned ugly. We can substitute become for turn in this example sentence. The weather became ugly. So that means the weather was good and then it became bad. We just use turn to describe that change. You can choose become or turn, but become is going to sound a lot more formal than turn. For a more casual expression, you could use get, actually. The weather got ugly. That's a great one, too. But you may hear turn to refer to becoming. So in the second example sentence, his attitude turned from excited to disappointed when he heard the news means his attitude became disappointed. His attitude changed from excited to disappointed. We use turn here to mean became in this case. So if you want to, you can describe these kinds of changes with the verb turned, but you might hear become or, as I said, get as well. So you can use turn to talk about these changes or to mean become, but it's just one of a few different choices that you might hear. You might hear turn, become, change, or get, for example, but they all refer to this kind of change taking place or one thing becoming something else. Let's move along to some variations now. The first variation is to turn someone or something in. This means to present or to submit something that is expected. Some examples. Please turn in your homework by tomorrow morning. A neighbor turned in the burglar who broke into our house. So to turn something in refers to presenting or submitting something you are expected to provide. So this is very common in classroom situations. The teacher will say, please turn in your homework. That means please present your homework. I am expecting you to present your homework, so please give it to me. So please turn in your homework, very commonly used in education settings. We see turn in used for people in typically like police-related situations or crime-related situations. In this case, the neighbor turned in the burglar who broke into our house. That means the neighbor brought to the police the burglar who broke into our house. So for some reason, the neighbor caught the person who broke into the speaker's house and brought that person to the police station. So to turn someone in refers to presenting a person, but to police specifically. So when you're talking about those kinds of situations, like crime situations, you'll hear turn someone in used to talk about a person being presented to the police. You can also use this verb reflexively, like the burglar turned himself or herself in to the police. So you can choose to present yourself if you have committed a crime. We would say to turn oneself in. The next variation is to turn someone or something over to someone. This means to give someone responsibility for someone or something. Some examples. I'm going to turn this project over to you. The police turned the suspect over to the legal team. So this means you are passing responsibility for a thing or a person to someone else. The first example sentence, I'm going to turn this project over to you, means I'm going to pass you the responsibility for this project. That means you get to make all the decisions. I want you to make the choices. You have the responsibility. I'm going to turn this project over to you. The second example is about a person. The police turned the suspect over to the legal team. This means the police originally had control of the suspect, but the police
turned over the suspect to the legal team. That means the police passed responsibility for the suspect to the legal team. So in the beginning, the police had control, authority over this person, but they gave that to the legal team. So you might hear this used when there's a new person joining a company and that person needs to be trained, for example. You might hear it in like legal situations, like I've talked about in the second example sentence here, or you might just hear it used for like supervising situations in general, like in events, for example. So to turn someone over to someone else means to be in charge of another person. Okay. So those are hopefully a few new ways for you to use the verb turn. As I've said, there are lots of different ways to use turn with prepositions, so please check out a dictionary for some more information. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making a sentence with the verb turn, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Also, if you like the video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel if you have not already, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye. Turn off the camera! Turn it off!
Access your free language gifts right now, before they expire. First, the All the Language You Need for Everyday Life PDF ebook. Get all of our best conversation cheat sheets rolled up into one PDF ebook. Download it right now before it disappears. Second, the Talking About Your Family conversation cheat sheet. Learn all the words you need to know to talk about your family with this one cheat sheet. Third, the Must-Know Words for Hobbies vocab lesson. If you want to talk about your hobbies in your target language, this 1-minute lesson is for you. Fourth, the top 15 phrases for talking about your plans, such as I am free tomorrow, I'm busy, and much more. Fifth, going on vacation vocabulary. Learn how to say camping, road trip, summer holiday, and much more with this 1-minute lesson. And sixth, the only app that teaches you the language through conversations between real people. Download Innovative Language Learning for free for the Android, iPhone, and iPad. You'll unlock bite-sized lessons that teach you practical conversations and get you speaking in minutes. To get your gifts and language learning resources, click the link in the description below. Download them right now before they expire. Hey everyone, welcome to the Monthly Review, the monthly show on language learning, where you discover new learning strategies, motivational tips, study tools, and resources. By the way, all the lessons and bonuses you're about to see can be downloaded for free on our website. So click the link in the description right now to sign up for your free lifetime account. Okay, today's topic is how to ramp up your language progress for the second half of the year. If you started learning a language at the start of the year, we're now pretty much halfway through the year. Has your language improved since January? And what about these next remaining months? Do you have any plans? If you don't want to feel guilty about being lazy with the language, and if you want to end the year strong instead of restarting next January for the millionth time, then now is the time to do it. Today, you'll learn 1. The best ways to ramp up your language progress without having to study more. 2. 7 tips and learning tools for faster progress. And 3. Much more. But first, if you're looking for new free language resources and downloads, here are this month's new lessons and resources. Be sure to download these now before we take them down in a few days. First, the All the Language You Need for Everyday Life PDF ebook. Get all of our best conversation cheat sheets rolled up into one PDF ebook. Download it right now before it disappears. And second, the How to Talk About Your Family conversation cheat sheet. To get your free resources, click the link in the description below right now. They're yours to keep forever. Now to today's topic. How to ramp up your language progress for the second half of the year. So if you want to ramp up your language progress, what should you do? Well, let's ask the question in a different way. What can you control within your language learning? You can't easily control results because that takes time, right? But you can always control your effort, meaning you can do more and spend more time. And for most learners, spending more time is usually the answer, and that's it. Just put in more time. Lesson over. But if you're not like most learners, if you've been learning a language without much progress, just throwing more time at the problem is not the best answer. Now, it's more about spending that time better, because some methods get you better results than others in the same amount of time. Part 1. The best ways to ramp up your progress. In fact, there's a popular story about a ceramics class you'll hear if you're learning about productivity, where a ceramics teacher split their class into 2 groups, where one group was graded on quality, where they had to create just one perfect pot to get a perfect grade, and the other group was graded on quantity, so they had to make 50 pots to get a perfect grade, and both spent the same amount of time. Can you guess who made the best pots? Was it the group that had to just make one perfect pot, or the group that made 50 in the same amount of time? Well, the group that made 50 pots ended up creating higher quality pots because they learned from the experience, whereas the group that sat around thinking of one best idea didn't get to improve at all. So both groups put in the same amount of time, but one group's results were vastly different. Just goes to show that if you want to ramp up your effort, it's also important to spend that time wisely. If you spend 1 hour cramming for the week, or if you spend 10 minutes a day for 6 days, both adding up to 1 hour for the week, you'll make better progress with 10 minutes a day for 6 days rather than cramming. Cramming doesn't work for hours up front, it just doesn't work. Similarly, if you spend 10 minutes watching YouTube videos on language, or 10 minutes saying 20 specific phrases where you're doing output over and over, you'll be way better off with the 20 phrases. The second lesson from that ceramics class story is this: frequency is much more important than the time put in. The group that got the best results made 50 pots. That's 50 practice attempts. So the amount of times you do something is way more important than how long you do it. Between cramming for an hour once a week and spending 10 minutes a day for 6 days, which is also an hour a week, you'll make better progress with 10 minutes a day for 6 days. With cramming, you only technically learn once, and then you forget. With 10 minutes for 6 days, that was 6 practice sessions, where your brain had time to rest, time to process what you've learned, and then had a chance to revisit it the next time around, allowing you to remember things better. So, to recap, if you want to ramp up your language progress, you can put in more time, which is good enough because most learners aren't putting in enough time. You can spend your time wisely with better learning techniques, and you can also increase your frequency of practice and learning. So, what can you do? Part 2. 7 tips and learning tools for faster progress. If you want to ramp up your language progress for the second half of the year and speak more, one way to do it would be to put in more time. If you're only putting in 10 minutes a day, try 20. But putting in more time for the sake of doing it may not always be the best approach. It depends on what you do with that time. So, if you want to ramp up your speaking progress, here's how you ramp up your output. 1. Increase the frequency of your output, or practice sessions. And this is the main takeaway from this lesson. However you choose to practice, you'll get better results from practicing several times a day or several times a week instead of once a day or once a week. This is why cramming never works. Here's how. 2. Practice your speaking skills by sending recordings to your Premium Plus teacher. The easiest thing you can do here is to send 3 recordings a day. 1 in the morning, 1 during the day, and 1 at night, detailing what you've done. Like, I wake up, I brush my teeth, I have breakfast, and I go to work. Just send 3 or 4 lines like that, nothing complicated. And they'll review your recordings and respond with corrections. 3. Take our hand-graded assessments to practice and assess your speaking and writing skills. You'll find these in the recommended pathway. And remember, you can always retake them after if you want to improve your score or apply the teacher's feedback. If you're a premium member, you can take our multiple choice assessments instead. 4. Practice shadowing the lesson conversation 3 times in one day. For example, after taking the lesson, shadow it once. If it's in the morning, then do it a second time at noon and a third time in the evening or before you go to bed. The point of spacing it out throughout the day is so that you remember it better instead of doing it once and forgetting it. 5. Practice reading the lesson dialogue out loud. If you can't easily shadow a conversation just yet, then reading is the next best thing. You can read along with the dialogue tool, lesson notes, or lesson transcript. 6. You can also practice writing out the lesson dialogues. Our lesson dialogues are conversations that you can use in real life with native speakers. And by writing it out a few times, you'll remember it better that way. 7. Use the voice recorder to record and compare yourself with native speakers. You'll find the voice recorder inside the dialogue tool in all of our lessons. Just look for the microphone icon next to each line. By the way, all of these suggestions shouldn't take more than 10 or 15 minutes, and all of these shouldn't be done just once a week. Just pick 1 or 2 from this list of suggestions and try them out. The goal here is to increase the frequency of sessions or output throughout the day or week. Remember, even though putting in more time can be a way to ramp up your progress, you still have to apply that time wisely. You could spend 15 minutes practicing speaking, or do just 5 minutes 3 times throughout the day, which is also 15 minutes. But you remember things better with the extra repetition. Thank you for watching this episode of Monthly Review. Next time, we'll talk about how to maintain your mindset and language learning routine. If you enjoyed these tips, hit the like button, share the video with anyone who's trying to learn a language, and subscribe to our channel. We release new videos every week. And if you're ready to finally learn language the fast, fun, and easy way and start speaking from your very first lesson, get our complete learning program. Sign up for your free lifetime account right now. Click the link in the description. See you next time. Bye. Great work. Here's a reward. Speed up your language learning with our PDF lessons. Get all of our best PDF cheat sheets and ebooks for free. Just click the link in the description.